Bring in show music, please.
Hi, I'm CNBC producer Katie Kramer. Today on Squawk Pod. More American troops on the way to the Middle East as the conflict with Iran continues and Wall Street reacts.
President Trump says that things are moving along very well, very well.
CNBC's reporter Dan Murphy in Dubai.
The end game here is still largely undefined.
And our Brian Sullivan on the global energy markets.
I spoke with an oil industry executive yesterday. He said it very clearly. You tell me who's running Iran, and I'll tell you how this goes.
Plus, venture capitalist and Pentagon vet Alex Harstrick on what makes this time different.
This is the first time that we're going to see an AI-driven war, a true hot war.
And noted risk manager Lloyd Blankfein, the former Goldman Sachs head, on the view from corporate America of regime change in Iran.
The combination of opportunity and proximity to the bad outcome, I'm not regretting that this happened.
It's Monday, March 2nd, 2026. Squawk Pod begins right now.
Stand Becky by in 3, 2, 1. Cue it, please.
Good morning and welcome to Squawk Box right here on CNBC. We are live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Becky Quick along with Joe Kernen. Andrew is off today. The U.S. and Israel hitting more targets in Iran following the death of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Iran and militias that are backed by the country firing missiles at Israel and Arab states. A top Iranian security official warning on X that, in his words, we will not negotiate with the United States. In a video on Truth Social, President Trump said that the nation grieves for 3 U.S. service members who've been killed in action.
Sadly, there will likely be more. Before it ends, that's the way it is. Likely be more, but we'll do everything possible where that won't be the case. But America will avenge their deaths and deliver the most punishing blow to the terrorists who have waged war against, basically, civilization.
Joining us now from Dubai is CNBC's Dan Murphy. Dan, bring us up to speed on where things stand in the region right now.
Becky, good morning. Well, residents in the Gulf capitals woke up this morning wondering where this conflict will go next after what was an intense weekend of strikes between the US, Israel, and Iran. Right now, regional air defenses are still on high alert. Loud blasts have been heard today in both Dubai and in Abu Dhabi. And you heard there President Donald Trump warning more American casualties are possible, even suggesting this conflict could last up to 4 weeks. As you mentioned as well, oil prices surging today. Saudi Arabia's Aramco confirming one of its key refineries called Ras Tanura was hit by an Iranian drone. That facility was shut down due to a fire and there's been no impact on supply, but analysts say it risks escalating this already hot conflict. Of course, the biggest risk right now is in the Strait of Hormuz and in the Red Sea, where any attack or full shutdown could drive oil prices even higher. Of course, some oil can be diverted through alternative routes, including Saudi Arabia's east-west pipeline to the Red Sea, but they can't really fully replace the Hormuz volumes. So that is a great concern for energy traders. And all of this also coming as we see a new front opening up as well. Hezbollah, this is the Iranian proxy in Lebanon, indicating it was attempting to avenge the death of the Ayatollah by striking targets inside Israel. The Israelis have been hitting back today by striking Hezbollah targets inside Lebanon. And of course, members of Congress will also be briefed today, but the end game here, at least from a Gulf capital perspective, seems undefined. President Trump has called on Iranians to rise up and overthrow their government, but what the end game is still unclear here. America's experience, of course, with regime change from Afghanistan to Iraq to Libya has been fraught and often unpredictable at best. For now, the region appears to be entering what's been called a new and pretty uncertain phase here, with multiple military fronts now open, and of course the fate of some 90 million Iranians hanging in the balance. Becky?
Dan, I think that's the biggest question. What happens regionally at this point? There are now 11 nations that are involved in this, and nations that thought that they were going to be remaining neutral have been targeted by the Iranians. What do you see as the next step just in how those nations respond?
It's a great question. And over the last 24 hours, we've seen this wave of Iranian strikes really shaking the Gulf capitals that are probably better known, as you know, Becky, for their stability and for their role as safe havens for tourism and commerce and global capital. Here in Dubai, for example, I could hear loud explosions overhead. This weekend, I saw projectiles streaking across the sky. We saw air defense systems working to intercept waves and waves, literally hundreds of Iranian missiles and drones across the course of those 2 days. And of course, that is not something that anyone who lives in Dubai, let alone the wider UAE or even other Gulf capitals, ever expected to see. Authorities also say many of those projectiles were aimed at civilian infrastructure as well. This is brand new territory. We're talking about ports here, airports, even areas close to some of the city's most recognizable landmarks here in Dubai. So the impact on daily life here is already very, very real. And many residents here and also in the other Gulf cities are now working from home or they're sheltering in place. Others also finding themselves stranded still because flights are cancelled. We have airspace still closed. And of course, parts of the region's infrastructure also heavily disrupted. So the impact on average everyday lives has been quite profound. And in terms of what is going to happen next, well, it is ultimately going to be determined by what the US president decides and how long this war will run. As I mentioned, the end game here is still largely undefined at this point. It appears we are on the cusp of regime change in Iran, but what exactly that regime could be replaced by has leaders here on edge. It's back to you.
Dan Murphy. Dan, thank you very much for that update. We hope to talk to you again soon.
Yesterday morning, I did have a chance to speak with President Trump. Amazing. He is open to some phone calls. I guess he was obviously, a lot was going on, but this is what he said. President Trump says that things are moving along very well, and that everything's ahead of schedule. Said it's a very violent regime, perhaps one of the most violent regimes in history. We're doing our job, not just for us, but for the world, and everything is ahead of schedule. As for an off-ramp, which people always want to talk about that, whether it's too soon or not, he said, as you might imagine, it depends on a lot of variables. We will have to see, but things are evolving in a very positive way right now.
Berkshire Hathaway reporting fourth quarter results this weekend. Operating earnings totaled $10.2 billion. That was a 29% decline from the year ago period, due partly to weaker results in Berkshire's insurance business. The company's cash hoard was down slightly to about $373 billion. That's down from $382 billion at the end of the third quarter. The fourth quarter was the company's last with Warren Buffett as its CEO. Greg Abel took the reins earlier this year. In his first annual letter to shareholders, Abel vowed to continue Buffett's culture of financial strength and capital discipline. He wrote, "Our owner's time horizon extends beyond the tenure of any individual CEO. I will not be your CEO for the next 60 years, as simple arithmetic makes that, shall we say, an ambitious plan. However, 20 years from now, when I will have just a fraction of the tenure that Warren had, my intention is that you or your descendants will be proud that your company is even stronger." Greg Abel, by the way, will join us exclusively live on Squawk Box right here on set Thursday morning.
On set?
He's coming on set. He's going to sit down with us and he's going to talk all of this through. His letter was great, first one out. And there were some people who were thinking, okay, he's going to change things. He's going to shake things up. We're going to be getting dividends. We're going to be getting more share buybacks. He said, no, man, this is keeping things steady.
That's exciting that he's going to be here. But I initially heard the headline was Greg Abel plans on continuing the path that Warren Buffett passed. So you're kidding. Really? So he wants to continue being like the greatest money manager?
Honestly, there were a lot of analysts who were saying, okay, we're going to get more details. We're going to see him do a share buyback. We'll talk about what they're going to do with that $300 and
He's not going 100% into crypto first thing?
No. This is steady as she goes. Second verse, same as the first. Yeah. And we're going to get to talk to him all about this on Thursday.
And how many hours has he spent with Buffett?
Years.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, he's been working
he's got
there
a pretty
for
good
years
idea.
and years. And that was what What Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger always said is that we're not looking for somebody from the outside, somebody that has to be trained in these ways. We are looking for an incredible manager who already knows all of these things. That's what they found in Greg Abel.
Right. Okay. What time Thursday?
7:30, I think.
It's a good hour.
Yeah, 7.
Before people leave.
Yeah.
Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos says that Paramount Skydance will have to cut billions of dollars in costs and lay off thousands of people after taking on a large amount of debt to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery. Sarandos making those comments to Bloomberg after his company dropped out of the race to buy assets from Warner. He also said Netflix is, in his words, in the clear in regards to reports that the Justice Department is looking into the company's business practices. I mentioned Ted Sarandos wearing jeans with a tie and a jacket, and apparently this is something that people get away with. Sullivan, Brian Sullivan, is here.
Hey, he's got a jacket on,
you do have a jacket.
Where's your jacket?
Can I intro you in the way that you should be introed? Saudi Arabia's energy ministry says an Iranian drone hit Aramco's Ras Tanura refinery, which you probably know about.
Biggest in the world.
Resulting in a fire that was quickly contained. Oil prices are surging. We're above 70 on the risk of supply disruption. Right now, the price of crude, as you can see, 72. Brian Sullivan.
I'm going to narrow this and simple this down into something that's probably a little too simplistic, but here's the point. Folks, let's bring up a live view from Marine Traffic by Kepler of the Strait of Hormuz, okay? You can go online, marinetraffic.com. You can take a look at the red dots, filter out the vessels. All those red dots and arrows are liquids tankers, either natural gas, oil, chemicals, methanol, whatever. You notice the top part. I tried to highlight it in a little green box. I know it's tough to see, but that upper knob, that is the Strait of Hormuz, 21 miles.
Yep.
And as you can see, there are no red dots or arrows in there. Those are ships, meaning there are no ships going through. Now, we hear the term, we're going to close the strait. I don't like that term. It's not a canal. There's no gate. You can't lock it. If a ship wants to go through, it can.
At its peril.
At its peril.
Right.
And right now, it's pretty much impossible to get insurance. So if something were to happen, you got blown up with a ship-to-shore missile or a mine, whatever it may be, the loss is all on you. That is everything for the price of oil. If we start to see ships go through there, I think the price of oil could actually fall from where it was 2 days ago.
And by the way, 21 miles and 20% of the world's oil flows through that tiny strait. That's why it's such a key issue. As long as that remains closed, that is going to keep these oil prices elevated. There were some analysts, Brian, who suggested that we could see $100 oil. You don't sound like you believe that.
I was pretty clear last night on CNBC Asia and on Twitter as well, the people I'm talking to and sort of the old commodity trader hat here, which is that you look at Iran. Iran is not Iraq. It's not Afghanistan. It's not Libya, okay? I understand the connections, regime change. You heard that a lot, Joe, this morning. I know our colleague Dan Murphy, who actually was living through bombs falling on where they are in Dubai. Iran is not those countries. I think the people of Iran want to be free. We saw the protests. We saw the mass executions. I spoke with an oil industry executive yesterday. He said it very clearly. You tell me who's running Iran, and I'll tell you how this goes. Nobody knows who's running Iran. I know they're talking about this assembly of experts. They get together. They pick the next Ayatollah. If it's somebody that's seen as more a little friendly to the West, you're going to see a bid come out of oil. And it's not just oil. 20 to 30% of natural gas goes through that feed or that area. And also, Joe, chemical fertilizers. 30% of chemical fertilizers in the world. So watch names like CF, Mosaic, those are here. Those are big fertilizer companies based here. Watch the Cheniers and the Venture Globals on the LNG side. And watch the shippers, because the shippers are already raising rates. And if and when we get insurance, and we will get insurance, just depends on what price, they're going to take a higher cut on the shippers. So watch GasLog, Scorpio, Frontline, and some others.
The insurance is the first problem. The second is captains not wanting to go through because it puts their lives, the lives of their crews at risk too.
Yes.
What would you compare this to? What we've seen in the past, 2019 or earlier?
This is what's fascinating. In 2019, Iran or somebody attacked Saudi Arabia.
They blame proxies.
They blame proxies, but it's their missiles and whatever. We call it Houthis, whatever. The Abqaiq area and refinery in Saudi Arabia. Brent crude spiked 14%. Can I blow your mind, Joe? And it's not just my genes. Here's the thing. We killed the Ayatollah Khomeini and many of his top leaders. The move in oil prices right now is not even a top 25 oil price move. What does that tell you about the level of oil that is in the market right now? But here's the thing. If this goes on, if that little, bring up that map, please, again, of the Strait of Hormuz. If we don't see ships, red dots, red arrows, going through that part in a day or two, the price of oil is going to trickle up every single day.
What are we doing to make sure that that doesn't happen?
Well, we can sweep mines. So in the 1980s, back when you were 5 years old, Joe, they used to sweep mines because Iran would literally World War II mines, these floating, bobbing things, and we've learned to go through and clear those out. There are now ship-to-shore, shore-to-ship missiles, those drone ships, effectively a speedboat with a bomb attached to it. The U.S. Navy is going to have a say in what happens here. U.S. Naval Air Power will have a say in what happens here. But as we learned in the Red Sea, it can just take a couple of people in a speedboat with an RPG that can severely disrupt traffic. I will, to your point, Becky, I talked to somebody in the insurance business also yesterday who said, remember last year, Ukraine and Russia had a 3-day ceasefire to move grain, wheat, through the Black Sea.
Right.
Because they said, okay, listen, both sides need to eat.
Right.
We don't want people starving. 3 days, everybody go. And we're not going to blow anything up. There is some chatter, I'm going to report right now, there's some chatter, I talked to insurance executives that perhaps we could see a similar situation where if there is somebody in Iran, it's a big if, that could make this decision, say, because Iran needs the money, Joe, more than any other country. They're the ones that need more oil money than anybody else. We're not going to blow anything up. Everybody's ship gets to go in and out. We all sell our oil or gas, and everybody's safe.
They launched a tax on Oman, which had been the negotiator between the neutral negotiator between these characteristics, and that left some people saying, wait a second, there's no way to talk to anybody from Iran, no way to know who's in charge, and no mediator who could do that.
Yeah, and I heard you talking to Dan Murphy, our colleague in Dubai this morning. What's the strategy here? I mean, why are you going after your fellow Muslim nations? Now, they're all different, right? Iranians are trying to be Persians. We don't want to lump them all together. There are factional and regional differences. Believe me, not everybody's getting along. But the reality is, dropping a bomb on a hotel or an airport in Dubai is not going to endear yourself to the region.
I would think that there are people sitting around down. I mean, they're thinking about everything. I would be thinking they would try to do things near the strait to prevent Iran from being able to close the strait.
There was a ship yesterday that went through, and some turned off our transponders, so you don't know they're going through, but then you can kind of see them just show up on the other side.
Yeah.
I watched the ship go through, and it hugged the Dubai coastline. I mean, it must have been, if you were swimming, you might have been able to go out and touch it because they were trying to be as far away from Iran as they could.
Right.
If we start to see ships go through there en masse again, I think the price of oil could fall back.
But they need the money, so you think that's part. Now, did they blow through all that $6 billion on the pallets from 2000? Remember?
Oh yeah.
They already spent all that. Don't they have some of that left from Biden?
So
that's not a real question.
No, it's a fair. No, I'll answer it. Okay. I'll answer it. I'm over
all
here.
Right. I just wanted to bring it up. You don't need to answer.
So the UK and EU basically did this, and if you're on the radio, I'm doing like a blind eye thing to Iran for about 4 of the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Sanctions should have been enforced, but they were not because oil, natural gas, you need money. You need revenue, okay? And Iran was able to build up, Joe, its foreign currency reserves, quadrupled them off of what they were. That number has come back down again. And I'll tell you, there's another variable. I'm just going to throw this out as we need a wrap, I'm sure. China is the big variable here because 80% of Iran's liquids go to China. Now they're not going to get it. It's not going to hurt us. It's probably going to benefit companies like Cheniere and Venture Global, if anything, because natural gas, LNG, oil, any shipper coming from Houston is a lot safer than coming from Qatar or through that little strait that we talked about right
China
there.
imports something like 10 million barrels a day, and I
Yep.
think 4 million of it was coming through the strait.
It's one of the derivative stories that we're going to have to really dive into, the whole impact on China.
I think
Taiwan,
rarely, rarely do you know you're living through history
as
it's happening real time. And this is it. This is history.
It is.
Real time.
There are times I wonder about the whole simulation thing too, the amount of things that happen in our lives. I don't know, maybe things are, you don't believe it? Elon Musk said we might be.
The three of us should get together one afternoon before you guys go to bed, and we'll
test that theory.
Have a glass of wine,
All right.
or a decaf coffee or whatever it is, and we'll talk about this.
All right.
Otherwise, I got to go because
One
they keep
afternoon
rapping. They
before
keep
we go to bed at 5.
Yeah, exactly.
You said it.
That's all he said.
I've been there.
Thank
You
you.
know it. You do.
I got up at 3:30 this morning.
It's not
Thinking
easy.
about you, Joe. It's
Yeah,
the first
but
thing I thought
do it
about
5 days. Do it every day.
He did.
I did.
Wake up call.
Oh, that's right. You used to do that.
Yeah, used to.
You're not doing that.
Like Mitch Hedberg said,
Well,
I used to, but I still do too. Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard. work.
But you look amazing. What's your secret?
Early to bed, early to
Good
rise.
surgeon? I don't know.
Makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise.
Propecia
Jeans.
jeans,
Jeans.
which you're wearing.
Yes.
We'll end on that too.
Tease will be next.
Coming up on Squawk Pod, the first AI-driven war with veteran and venture capitalist Alex Harstrick.
We've seen these types of shifts all throughout human history. Somebody was using bronze, someone else used steel. Somebody was using swords, someone else was using a gun. Someone else was using a gun, someone else was using a missile.
And another headline from the weekend, the Pentagon blacklisting Anthropic, the maker of the Claude artificial intelligence agent, over a dispute about the military's use of Claude. Concerns are brewing.
It is easy to comment on the nomenclature difference between Silicon Valley and the military-industrial complex.
Welcome back. This is Squawk Pod from CNBC.
Stand Joe by. 3, 2, his mic. Cue.
You're watching Squawk Box on CNBC. I'm Joe Kernen. Along with Becky Quick, Andrews off today. The U.S., as you know, and Israel striking more targets in Iran and militias backed by the country, firing missiles at Israel and across the board at Arab states.
Our next guest says that the Iran conflict is the first new hot war where the White House could use AI-driven weapons in real time. Joining us right now is Alex Harstrick. He is J2 Ventures founder and managing partner. He also happens to be a veteran who focuses very closely on defense companies and technology. And Alex, let's talk a little bit about this. We'll get to Anthropic and what it said over the weekend. But first of all, what do you make of the situation right now, how prepared we are, and what you expect to see?
Well, Becky, I think your previous guest touched on the issue very well from a geopolitical standpoint. But in your intro, you summarized it perfectly. This is the first time that we're going to see an AI-driven war, a true hot war. Previously, these were technologies that were used for a bunch of other purposes, logistics, military planning. But for the first time ever, you're going to see active munitions being used that were almost completely designed, deployed, and executed by artificial intelligence. I think currently there's still a lot of human in the loop, but the technological enablement is like something we've never seen before.
And how do we prepare for that, first as a nation, and then secondarily, you're an investor to boot. How do you think about these things? The idea of drones being able to infiltrate through systems, of them being much cheaper than traditional missiles, and how we prepare ourselves for that.
It's really, really hard. From a geopolitical standpoint, we just need to accept the fact that artificial intelligence in warfare is an inevitability. We've seen these types of shifts all throughout human history. Somebody was using bronze, someone else used steel. Somebody was using swords, someone else was using a gun. Someone else was using a gun, someone else was using a missile. And when you think about any sort of decisive action that happened in any type of military conflict, it was usually ended by somebody having such a decisive advantage from a weapons standpoint that fighting no longer made any sense. And so the issue that we have right now, though, is that for the first time ever, those weapons aren't being designed by the military industrial complex itself. They're being designed by Silicon Valley, by developers around the world, by people who were not raised or brought up in this industry, but they've built the technology that best enables this industry. And so while AI is an inevitability, the best AI is not being built by people who want it to be an inevitability in the same context that previous weapons were built. And so that's causing a bit of a clash that we really haven't seen for about a decade between Silicon Valley in the general sense and the military industrial complex. And so though AI will be adopted, the best AI is still kind of sitting on the sidelines because of a lot of these moral quandaries about how AI is being developed and deployed.
Which sets up the Anthropic controversy perfectly. Where do you come down on that? Anthropic said, no, we will not go along with anything and everything. Daria Amodi has since come out and said that the two things that they really would not go along with would be, one, mass surveillance of U.S. citizens, the second being AI weaponry that has no human interaction whatsoever. What are your thoughts on this?
It's hard to comment on the specifics of the case, Becky, but it is easy to comment on the nomenclature difference between Silicon Valley and the military industrial complex. Okay. So when the Pentagon talks, the Pentagon is a command and control culture. The person at the top is at the top. The person below the person at the top does not challenge the person at the top, vice versa. Everybody has had some experience with the military to understand this cultural dynamic. The way Silicon Valley expresses that same cultural dynamic is through their terms of use, because that's how they recruit their engineers. Their engineers are equally mission driven to those in the Pentagon, albeit they speak in a different way. And so what we're seeing right now is exactly that clash playing out, which is the terms of use that Anthropic approached the Pentagon with originally are being changed. And so just as the Pentagon is having a disagreement with how that terms of use needs to adjust, so too does Anthropic believe the terms of use should not be adjusted. And so the impasse is really difficult, largely because I believe both sides are speaking past each other. In the case of the Pentagon, it was never a stick that helps them incentivize proper military technology. When we think about the best tech that's created in America, everything from GPS, LiDAR, the inputs for computers, computer chips, all of these different pieces were created because the military made an incentive around creating those products and making them in America, and then adopting them for fundamentally dual use purposes. You begin to enter into unprecedented and potentially dangerous territory in interaction with Silicon Valley when you begin to have sticks around working with the military. Said differently, compelling people who otherwise would not want to work with the military to bring their products forward. I understand where the Pentagon is coming from. China is developing all of these tools internally. Iran is developing these tools internally. Russia is developing these tools internally. If America doesn't compete, America risks potentially catastrophic losses by not having AI-enabled weapons. But we need to make sure that we're talking to each other in the way that we want to be spoken to. And I think that rift is something we're only just beginning to see.
We're out of time, but Sam Altman from OpenAI, which immediately cut a deal with the Pentagon and said that the Pentagon said they'd be using OpenAI's AI measurements and tools as a result. Sam Altman said that there's more debate than he thought there would be on this, at least on Twitter, about whether we should prefer a democratically elected government or unelected private companies to have more power. Whose side do you come down on, Sam Altman's or Daria Amodi's?
Ultimately, America is governed by laws. Those laws are created and governed by those at the consent of the governed. This is why we have a republic. Technology is amazing. I absolutely love it, but we do need to put all of our decision-making into lawmakers and into those who are democratically elected. Technology should never supersede those in power.
So you think the Defense Department was right to say, you're going to go along with us or else? Should Anthropic be put on a supply chain risk list?
The actual legality, Becky, is really tough. But what I would say is I think both sides are talking past each other. And it's disappointing that there isn't more of a conversation between the two in how to best resolve this issue, because we need the best and brightest on how we think about the future of artificial intelligence and warfare. Nobody should be sitting out of that conversation.
Alex Harstrick. Alex, thank you for joining us this morning.
Squawk Pod will be right back with former Goldman Sachs CEO Lloyd Blankfein, looking back on his unique Wall Street life.
Usually, I have to respond to people. Here, I could write something down, go back, and make it better and change it. I'm going to go become a screenwriter now. I didn't realize you could do that sort of thing.
Stay with us. You're listening to Squawk Pod from CNBC on this newsy Monday with Joe Kernen and Becky Quick. Here's Joe.
We have a true genius. I've known you for a long time. Lloyd Blankfein is here. You're so fast, so quick-witted, such a worldly guy. You got a book out.
Let's stop right there.
Yeah, we got a book out there, and you're so funny. But just so, I think wit and intelligence are correlated. I've learned that over the years. But streetwise, getting to and through Goldman Sachs, Jack Welch was getting ready to come on September 11th and talk about his book. Sometimes things happen which preempt what you're here to talk about. We're going to get to the book as quickly because I want to hear about it, and especially when I realize that you call it really catharsis because you're trying to explain to your kids why you were away so much, but doing great things. But just how do you stand on what's transpired since Friday night?
A couple of things. The guys with the guns win, which very logical in history that bears it out. But let's take a specific example from the past. How about when the Ayatollah came back? The Shah's troops all had the guns, and they were loyal until, guess what? They decided they weren't going to fire on their own countrymen for whom they developed certain kind of sympathy as that regime was falling. So it's not unprecedented, and it's not unprecedented even with respect to Iran. So just note that it's conceivable.
So the converse could happen, where the revolutionary types don't fire on the pre-revolutionary.
Well, that's happened before, exactly. And so, I would say, I'd be always prepared for the worst. I'm in the risk management business, and one has to do that. But I would say every once in a while, things can work out. And maybe this will also work out.
When you heard about it on Saturday, or whenever you heard about it, did you say LFG?
I'm thinking, I don't know, what's LFG?
Don't ask. Were you in favor of it?
You were thinking, let's go. Let's
go. Here's what I was thinking of, and I just made an analogy in my head. After Iran, the biggest troublemaker in the world is North Korea. Not much we could do about that today because they have nuclear weapons. And you think, who let that opportunity go by where we could have gone in, intervened, and eliminated them as a threat? By the way, they still might be the scourge of the world. I mean, we haven't heard from them in a while, but they'll be back. They haven't left, and they'll be back. And I'm thinking, don't we wish we had intervened in that when we still had time? And now people are saying, well, it wasn't proximate yet. We weren't close enough with Iran. It wasn't. But something. My algorithm is, how close is it? But also, what's the opportunity set, and will it ever be repeated? So we have a moment in time. No air defenses. The civil population is up. The country and the economy is in disarray. The combination of opportunity and proximity to the bad outcome. I'm not regretting that this happened.
All right. So you've heard of LNG.
Yes.
But you had
that's
no
what
idea
I thought. That's what I thought.
You thought I was talking about.
Well,
I don't believe you.
No,
I know how traders like you
speak in
former traders talk.
You speak in typos.
Foul-mouthed.
Yes, exactly.
Investment bankers.
Yeah, I was like one of those guys.
Yeah, you would. Let's delve into.
Sure.
I want to read it because as I said, knowing what I know about you, it must be hilarious reading through it, but also heartfelt.
Well, I think it's funny. The first time in my life, usually I have to respond to people. Here, I could write something down, go back, and make it better and change it. I'm going to go become a screenwriter now. I didn't realize you could do that sort of thing.
You can.
Yeah.
What was the thrust, though? Is it telling how?
No, the thrust.
I mean, you grew up with absolutely nothing. I know that. What did your dad do? He was like
a mail sorter in the post office.
Mail sorter.
Yes.
And now you're a fat cat and you got to listen to Elizabeth Warren. But
you're right. Tell me what a fat cat I am.
Yeah, exactly. But it was. You ended up at Harvard, didn't you?
Look, there's a lot of it's memoirish, so there's a lot of biographical stuff, with perspective, going from the projects in East New York, public housing in East New York, to Harvard, and getting tortured a little bit. while there. Of course, only having good memories about it now, but not necessarily while I was living it. False start in a law firm, but a lot of it is getting to and through Goldman Sachs, which is the subtitle. You know, heroes of mine who didn't always act in a great way because they're human, but they still remain heroes. A lot of it is the financial history of the period. You know, for crying out loud, we had we had the crisis of the century about every 4.5 years during my tenure, and very often, and nothing can go wrong in the world without Goldman Sachs being affected by it, but given the size and scale of our balance sheet and our influence. And of course, they would accuse us of starting, most of the time they'd accuse us of starting it. So there's that perspective on things. And so, again, it's the mystique of Goldman Sachs going through it behind the scenes, a lot of financial history, a lot of focus on the financial crisis and how people, how people behave and how an organization, which I think still has a spectacular culture. Look at the people that Goldman Sachs attracts, recruited. Look at what they do with their subsequent careers. People performed really terrifically in the lead up, which is why we weren't that affected. Commercially, we were quite affected reputationally. Largely because, we did okay in the crisis. The aftermath. So a lot of it is, I hate to say, people have pointed it out, and I'm not embarrassed to say it. It's a bit of an ode to my old firm and what it has accomplished, and really how it happens. How does that secret sauce get created and maintained?
What is the answer to that question?
Well, I would say it's it's always been a partnership culture, an ownership culture. We have people in the firm. Their compensation comes from the success of the whole firm. People are taught to have big ears. People are treated like owners, which means there's a big difference between being a senior partner and a CEO. I was even as a CEO, I was kind of a senior partner, which means engaging, listening, socializing changes, having to go a little bit slower, having to change your mind, which nobody really liked. Well, sometimes it changed my mind and I wanted to change my mind in response to what I've been told. But creating an expectation that people are owed information, are owed influence in the country, creates kind of an ownership. And so people in the firm have big ears. There are people, who are bond traders in Japan, whose reputations and what they do for a living is affected by what happens to investment bankers in New York, and they feel ownership of it. They get mad as heck if something goes wrong, and they go out and send congratulations if everything goes right. And even in a large firm that has grown over the years in population and also in footprint around the world, that's not 26 years after becoming a public company, the firm still thinks of itself as a partnership, or senior people are called partners. That process of going public happened with my predecessor, Hank, continued with me. When Hank was there, the firm, even as a public company, was dominated by Goldman Sachs partners who were the owners, continued into my world where it was the transition towards a public company has continued under David Sullivan. What does that mean? It means more emphasis on smoother earnings, let's say, which is what the new owners of the company want, namely the shareholders. And he's accomplished that, and I think that's a good thing. I was sort of in the middle of that, which was, still had a lot of stuff on balance sheets, still had a high tolerance for volatility. In a private partnership, you care about your capital account. You don't care about the smoothness of earnings or price earnings. And I think that has continued to this day. The big achievement, I think, that has occurred is that becoming a public company, a real public company, with all the things that shareholders want to see in the management, and still maintaining that partnership ethic. And I talk a lot about how that's done. And the way it's done is you do things you might not want to do. You take time you might not have, but you walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
When did David take over for you?
About at the end of 2018.
You send him a nice Christmas gift every year?
Yeah, I also vote with management every year.
I mean, I don't know, there was a little bit of rockiness in his tenure, but now, Jesus, you got a lot of stock left.
I do.
It's worth a lot. It's worth a lot more.
Oh, I'll have to go check.
you talked, and everybody, I'll never forget your quote from the financial crisis that, calm down, wuss. You're not in a boat over storming the shores of
you're not getting out of a Higgins boat.
You're going into the New York Fed to have.
You're getting out of a Mercedes in the New York Fed. Get a grip.
Could be worse. But is there?
And by the way, it got worse.
Not quite.
But the bullets were figurative, not literal.
Exactly. And when I said LFG, I'm not doing squat. I admire our guys so much. I really don't think I could have been one of those guys. I mean, that actually do walk the walk.
It turns out that you don't know till you know.
Maybe you don't know till you know.
I think I'm not talking about the.
I've asked, what if you cry in basic training, like with the Marines?
I
go home if you.
I go through this, and I'm not talking about physical courage, which is, of course, a different order of magnitude and a deep respect. And I realize the times that we're in. But even the courage that people showed in the financial crisis, and I'm not conflating the two or equilibrating the two, but I would say there were people who are spectacular guys, athletes, Olympians, and blah blah blah, and when it hit the fan, there was some hyperventilation in the corner, and there were some people, who didn't look like they could walk up a whole flight of stairs who were just magnificent.
What happened to the people who didn't pass that test?
Well, they kind of flaked off. Yeah. They did. And also they lost a lot of prestige. A lot of time during these things, I pointed out to people that your reputations are going to be made during this period of high pressure. Mm-hmm. So act well, not just because it's in your economic interest or because I'm requiring it. Act well because the people around you, and look at the people who leave Goldman Sachs, all the cabinet officers, all the prime ministers and everything, that even you guys who are young in the firm, your reputations with each other, even the dopey guy sitting next to you, roll the clock forward 25 years, and these are going to be the most influential people in the world, whether they stay at Goldman or go somewhere else, go into government or just another firm or create a private equity shop, whatever. These are going to be the most influential people, and their impression of you is going to be fixed based upon how you act today. So guess what? Act well.
Are we going to need the same type of people anytime in the near future to face the same type of things? In other words, how do you feel about the market right now? AI, private credit?
It was kind of a bit fragile before all this started, and so we're coming into it. I think this macro kind of event will, look, things can go off the rail. A lot of stuff could go wrong and get worse. Oil could become a bigger deal, longer, straits close. My base case is that this will sort out on a macro basis, and then we'll have to deal with some of the stuff. There's always anxiety. We look for it, wall of worry. I'm basically very, very positive.
You are?
On the market, sure. But the one thing that you have to realize is, you need a kind of a cleaning out. It's like The Godfather, you have to have a war every 10 years to clean out the grudges. I think in markets, there hasn't been a problem or a reckoning in a long time. So the people had to have lost discipline since the last time that there was one of these things. Usually it happens every 5 or 6 years. It hasn't happened for more than 15 years. And so you think about the lack of discipline, money going in the wrong place. No one's had to really mark-to-market stuff. Look, we've just had one of the best, we're still near the highs of the equity market. It's been the best financing market, and inventory of illiquids are still building up on balance sheets and supposedly can't be sold. At some point, there'll have to be a forced reckoning. Hopefully, it won't happen. Hopefully, it won't happen later this afternoon or tomorrow. But that's a real cause of worry. But having said that, it seems like a lot of tailwinds. The economy is doing well. Inflation is kind of tamer, and we're going to lower rates into a pretty good GDP. I realize that there's a lot of polarization because the economy isn't doing it's doing a good job creating wealth, not necessarily allocating that wealth according to the values, and so you're getting a polarized society, and that's bad. But overall, a lot of tailwinds, and a lot of, we're just about to come up to more fiscal stimulus. And by the way, fiscal stimulus coming from hyperscalers who are going to, who are investing hundreds of billions of dollars, which is also kind of going to be a stimulus to the market.
What do you do with your own money? You're a risk manager. You think of these things from all these perspectives. Do you position your own? If
I do.
You're worried that this is long in the tooth.
That's a good way of doing it. You should always ask people, what do you think, and then following up with, what are you doing? Because people sometimes say, not because they're lying, but because they get confused themselves. Because I'm a worrier. And so if you ask me what do I think, I'll give you all my worries. But if you ask me what I'm doing, I'm all in equities.
Okay.
I'm in risky assets, and of course, very, very responsive. If I hear a twig crackle in the background, I jump 5 feet into the air and I want to do something. And I think that that's a way to be positioned. It seems to me we're overdue for something. I'm not sure the direction, but inevitably it will come. But I don't see it happening tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Next week is another thing.
What about the Federal Reserve? With the changes that have taken place there, is this something you pay much attention to?
In terms of what they're doing, or the assault on the Federal Reserve?
The assault on the Federal Reserve, what comes next?
I think it's crazy. I think the Federal Reserve look, we're a debtor nation. We need creditors to lend us money all the time. U.S. can't default by not paying. We'll never default specifically because we print dollars. We can always return all the dollars we printed. The question for our creditors is, what is that dollar going to be worth? And if they think that the dollar is going to be inflated or diminished in terms of its purchasing power, they'll either require a much higher interest rate or they won't lend to us at all. The guardian of the integrity of the dollar is the Fed. And so if I'm a creditor, I want a Fed that's independent, high integrity, that honors its mandate to not allow the currency to be inflated, i.e., to default through inflation. And so to undermine the importance of the Fed is sending the wrong message to our creditors. So I wouldn't be doing that. And it's crazy for the people who are managing our debt to be undermining the importance and the influence of the Federal Reserve on policy, because the creditors look to the Fed as the guardian of their interests.
One of your predecessors, John Whitehead, was at Normandy. Not only was he at Normandy, he was one of the first people to get there to organize things, so he had no cover. So you come from good stock.
He was a junior officer on one of the landing craft, and when I made that comment,
you were thinking about him.
I was thinking about him.
Yeah.
He sent me a very nice note that was terrific. When you talk to when you talk to people, and you know what they lived through.
Yep. That informed the way you are, which I appreciate.
Well,
thank you, and thank you. I'd like to talk more about this, and you're always welcome. You know that.
Is that right?
Always.
Fantastic.
All right.
Thank you.
And that is Squawk Pod for today. Thanks for listening. Thanks for starting your week with us. Squawk Box is hosted by Joe Kernen, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorkin. Please tune in weekday mornings on CNBC at 6 Eastern to get the smartest takes and analysis from our TV show right into your ears. Follow Squawk Pod wherever you get your podcasts and listen anytime you want. Have a great Monday. We'll meet you right back here tomorrow.
We are clear. Thanks, guys.